You're listening to the Blacktop Banter podcast, the premier podcast in the asphalt industry, made for contractors with contractors.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Blacktop Banter. And this has been a fun one for us to get in the schedule and get going. I think we've rescheduled this now 4 or 5 times, Mike.
It's getting pretty close to that, yep.
Yeah, it's getting there. And we go to get Mike connected to us today. And he's like, dude, we just had a crazy wind snowstorm come through here. I'm going to be on my hot spot. I don't know if it's going to work. And thankfully, we're in an industry where you kind of figure out how to make things work. And even if it isn't the best, you still use the tools you got to get the job done. So today I have Sales and Marketing Director over at KM International, Michael Blake, who has become a friend of mine. We text, off and on and just check up and check in on each other. When we were there last year, in November-ish, I think, Mike, we did,
end of November.
Yeah, we did a Blacktop Banter meetup. We talked about what we wanted 2024 to look like, hopefully, whether it was us on the contractor side or you all creating the products and equipment that we use in order to do what we do. But I think you'll agree with me, it was a strange year, 2024, as far as seasons go.
It for sure was. I don't, and there's really no explanation for it. We always joke around the shop like, oh, it's an election year, sales are going to fluctuate. I don't know. I'm not really a political guy, so I don't know how much truth or non-truth there is to that, but it was a good first 2 quarters, and then the third and fourth kind of, I don't want to say regressed, but just were odd trends.
Yeah, I think it happened for us too. We were a victim over here in Wisconsin from the weather. We put out a pile of quotes and then had a lot on the books, and then it took a month and a half for the rain to stop, which I know most of our weather carries over to Michigan across the lake.
Yep.
But I was like, dude, we finally, around the 4th of July, it felt like we finally started to get going. And then abruptly, that comes to an end when all of a sudden it hits August, people start thinking about the election. September, they're really thinking about it, right? And we noticed some of the commercial ones that we were putting out where we thought we were competitive and for sure would have got these. The clients were still like, well, we're going to hold off. We're going to hold off. And it was like, okay. But then the very optimistic boating citizens who had private driveways or whatever they had, whether they had parking pads or whatever, they were like, let's do it. Let's get it done. So we had a shift, man. It was weird.
So we experienced something fairly similar. So, on the manufacturing side and distribution side, we're probably about 50-50 between municipal entities that we sell to and private contractors the podcast listeners. So it was weird. I mean, we on the private side, business stayed fairly steady. On the municipal side, once you get a little bit closer to the election, I think they get a little bit of cold feet, not knowing what's going to happen, not knowing how much money they're going to have, the following fiscal year or how it's going to end this year. So there was definitely a shift this year, and it was obviously by no means a bad year, but it wasn't, I guess, what we were originally anticipating or expecting. So it's just one of those things you adapt and survive and move on.
Well, it's not so I had this conversation, obviously I've had this conversation a bunch now with a lot of different people, and it's not like these municipalities haven't been around for hundreds of years, right? And it's not like some of these businesses that we're working for, this isn't, some of them are 100-year businesses where we're performing their parking lot work, and it's it's just so funny to hear people say that. It could have been, the election year. It's well, yeah, but every 4 years they've had an election year, and they've done this now for 100 years, right? So it is and it isn't. Humans are just, we're strange characters. We're strange ducks. We're creatures of habit, and I think a little bit. If someone tells you it's raining outside, you hesitate a little bit to go outside no matter what, whether it's raining or not. Someone's like, oh, it's raining out? shoot, your mind starts thinking about how you're going to prepare for the rain, whether it's raining or not. And I just feel like that's kind of what happened generally, was maybe media took over a little bit and it
Yep.
had an impact on
And
it.
it's, using that rain analogy, it's like you tell somebody it's raining out, it's like they got to look outside just to make sure. Like,
Yeah,
I'm not
I
lying
can't
to you.
trust
And
you.
I just came in from outside and my coat's wet.
Yeah.
And like it's raining. You don't have to verify it.
Yeah, yeah. Or you're the guy who walked in completely dry and you're like, dude, it's not raining out. And they're like, well, no. Tom said it's raining. It's like, well,
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's not going to rain. So
Yep.
you just kind of have that atmosphere in the industry. And I'm thankful because already, like, I can feel that we're past that. Like, and it was only a month ago here, and it's already, I feel like we're past it.
Yep. We as soon as it ended, it was just kind of like back to normal. There
Yeah.
was such a build up to it, and then it happened, and it was just the next day we came in business as usual, and carried on with our lives. Nothing really changed for the
Yeah.
good or the worse. So, but we obviously talked to a dozen or so different contractors every single day, and it was just really mixed reviews this year as far as like their workload and revenue growth and bringing on new clients and stuff like that. There was I don't know, there was no rhyme or reason to it. Some people we talked to, they said, dude, one of the best years I've had in
Hmm.
X number of years. And some of them were like, wow, we really even struggled to get by and pay the bills.
Yeah.
So
I
it was,
think, not to cut you off, but I think like some people don't even know that they're in a good position until like they get tested, and then they're
yep.
like, oh, our business was set up perfectly for that. Like us being so heavy on the residential side, when my whole industry on the asphalt maintenance is like, we only want parking lots, like we need parking lots. It's like, well, what if all of a sudden somebody's like, we don't, what if the whole general atmosphere is like, well, it's election year, we're not going to do our parking lot, and that's your whole client base.
Right.
Then all of a sudden the residential guys are like, yes. But then let's say something happens that puts the idea in the mind of business owner or homeowners where they're like, yeah, we're not going to do anything. And you're only doing residential. Then you're screwed because you're like, well, man, I wish we would have had some parking lots to do. So I think the businesses, even though we all do asphalt maintenance and asphalt work, they're designed differently. And the atmosphere, climate that we were in, some did really well and some didn't. And there was really no rhyme or reason other than maybe your client base, maybe your location, maybe the weather. Like it could have been anything.
I know. And that's why we always preach like, diversity. You don't want to rely on, 10 clients to make
Yeah.
your year.
Yeah.
We always, residential, say what you will or won't about it. People are hard to deal with in that aspect. But it's a necessary evil. You're going to take the work if it's there.
Oh, for sure.
All the seal coaters and the pavement maintenance guys, like, they want to make their bread and butter on commercial clients because normally they're easier to deal with, better
Yeah.
payers. There's some sort of consistency there. But hey, if there's nothing wrong with taking on residential work, it
No.
pays the bills and feeds your family, then it is what it is. You got to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you just end up kind of being a victim of circumstance and different stages in business and whatnot too. And I don't know. I think your attitude plays a lot into it as well. I think no matter where you work or what you do, your attitude about it plays into it, quite a bit. Like sometimes we do residential driveways and they're beautiful, right? But they might not be as a transformative at, oh, I changed the thing. I had a parking lot behind me here and I was going to say, we transformed this, but it's a Blacktop Banter logo. Like you transform a parking lot and you're like, whoa. And the property manager's like, thanks. When can we use it? But
Yeah,
if you do a driveway, some of these people are like, my God, it looks amazing.
brand
Right?
new.
They're like,
Yeah.
yeah, it looks like brand new, and our landscaping pops. It brings out the siding. We can't wait to invite people over, and all of a sudden, like, you're really proud of a $1,000 driveway when the $10,000 parking lot, the guy didn't even give a crap. He just was like, when can we get on here? Right?
Yep.
So,
Here's your
yeah,
check. See you next year or two
here's
years.
your check.
Whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'll call you when the pothole opens up. Right?
I
So,
know. And we're in the same boat as far as like reaching out to new customer bases and stuff like that. Like I told you earlier, we're about 50-50 between municipal and private contractors. And dude, I have just as much fun talking to, you know, Jim Bob, from ABC Contracting and wherever,
Yeah.
middle of nowhere US, as I do talking to, government people representing DoD agencies or anything like that. It's just you have to go with the flow kind of, and tailor your approach to your customer
Yeah.
base.
Well, you think about like as an example, like when whenever I get over there and see you all, and we roll out a hot box, and it's whatever it's gonna be, whether it's with all the bells and whistles, we're probably pushing 50K on some of them sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, and the guys pick them up from the municipalities are like, thanks. And then you got guys like Colin and Brandon from SPM Seal Coating, who when they picked their rig up, they were like, oh yeah, baby, this is what I'm talking about. Yeah, they're
Yep.
smiling from
Oh,
ear to ear.
dude,
They're wanting to
yes.
break a bottle of champagne on it and christen it, you know what I mean, before they
Yep.
roll it out of the parking
Yep.
lot. So
And you are exactly right. And we get a lot of people like that. We're like, man, this thing's awesome. And I'm going out patching right into, like, they pull out of our driveway. They're 2 hours later, they're down in Metro Detroit patching potholes. And
yeah,
then
which is common in Michigan.
yep.
Like there's
And
always going to be potholes in Michigan.
dude, you know it. It's the same thing in Wisconsin, Minnesota, Ohio. You get
Yeah.
that freeze thaw, and it tears them up.
Yeah. Yeah. It's starting right now, that freeze thaw. Well, let's talk a little bit about your role, because I asked you, we've known each other now 3 to 4 years. I asked you about your role because at first I just remember it being, the reason I remember it as just marketing, right? Like that was your title, marketing. Is because Michael. So I always just associated Michael and marketing, and I was like, well, Michael does marketing at KM, and now you were like, guess what? I'm the IT guy. I can't figure out how to get this camera to work with my hotspot, and we're doing this. And there's been times where Kurt's been crazy busy, and I'm like, hey, I was trying to get a hold of Kurt, and I got this guy that wants to buy a rig. You're like, all right, I'll take this one. I'll relay it to Kurt or do whatever. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into this role. You can go back as far as you want or not. I know you got family life and whatnot now, and a lot since I first met you and until now and whatnot. That's changed a little bit too. But give us a little bit of your background, and then I would love for us to get into talking about the pieces of equipment, because we took a venture with you all into the seal coating side that I would love to talk about. But give us a little bit of background and context about yourself. I know you hate talking about yourself, but just give us a little bit of background on how you got into this position at KM.
Being in a small business, obviously everybody wears a lot of different hats. So originally, yes, you are correct. My position, or my main position, I guess I'll phrase it, was sales and marketing. So picked up on that a little bit. Took more of a leadership role, moving into like handling all the marketing and then overseeing a lot of the sales, strategies, stuff like that, working with both of the owners pretty closely. So this will be my 11th year in with KM International. This was
That's
my first
crazy.
big boy job, I call it, coming right out of college. I had a buddy who was working at KM doing logistics. He's also still here. And, Cliff was looking for a sales and marketing person. He's like, well, I got this buddy who just graduated college, and him and his wife are moving up into the area, so you should interview him. And
Dang.
not knowing a lot about it, showed up in a two-piece suit and tie, and
No
embarrassed
way.
myself a little bit.
Uh,
I had no idea what to expect. You
well,
going into a job interview.
oh,
So
KM's unique anyways.
yeah,
Like
yep. So
let's just throw that out there. Like anybody walking in a two-piece suit to KM is going to feel a little bit out of place.
you are exactly right.
Yeah.
So which essentially brings us in to today. We're still doing a little bit of everything. I've even dabbled in, we have a contracting side of our business as well. So
Yep.
we do a lot of patching. And actually, I talked to Colin yesterday about a couple of jobs
Okay,
that
cool.
I was trying to sub out to him. So we keep a very small crew. We have like one or two contracts that we focus on, and really that portion of the business was originally set up because we wanted to R&D our equipment.
Okay.
So we
Okay.
have, new control panels, or, tinkering with bells and whistles here on the hot boxes specifically. We say, well, instead of just, mass producing it and putting it out in the field, let's give it to our guys over at the road crew, let them
Mm-hmm.
essentially try to break it. Be
Yeah.
rough on it, see the durability, the reliability, functionality, and you guys test it before we end up kicking it out. So that's worked out very well, and there's been a lot of things that we've R&D'd over here before putting out that have turned out to be awesome changes. So
Yeah. Brian loves that, right? Like, bring it back to me broken. He's always like, dude, do whatever you can do to break this and bring it back to me. I'm like, oh,
yep,
okay, cool.
you're exactly right.
So,
That's the only way you grow, though, is finding your faults and then trying to fix them, and putting out a better product.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening to this podcast. My name is Chris Giese. I am the producer of the Blacktop Banter podcast and Marvin's right-hand man when it comes to all things content and podcast related. If you're a business owner or a contractor and you're thinking about creating content, or maybe you already are, using content to grow your influence and your business online, but you're feeling frustrated or overwhelmed with the process, or maybe you're just lost in general and don't know how to get started, I'm here to help. For a limited time, I'm offering free 30-minute consultation calls where we can take a look at your business. You can tell me about your goals. We can look at what your pain points are and give you some actionable insights that you can start using in your business right away. So if that's something that sounds like it might be of interest to you and could be helpful in your business and your journey toward content creation, I'm here to help. You can sign up for free on my website at chrisgiese.com. That's CHRISGIESE.com. I look forward to talking with you.
I work closely with KM International to design what I believe is the best seal coating unit on the market. The Blacktop Banter Edition seal coating unit, available in both 550 and 700 gallon versions. Learn more about the unit by visiting kminternational.com.
Quick startups, fume-free, automatic agitator shutoff, a splash-proof lid, and pumping on demand. These features are essential for any serious asphalt maintenance contractor. Elevate your game with the Crafco Super Shot line of melters by visiting crafco.com today.
Hi contractors, it's Kyla from Wiscoat. We use Stencil Plus for all of our pavement marking stencils. You can save 10% on your stencil order by using code BB10 during checkout at stencilplus.com or by calling 877-372-6055.
In the past year, Jobber has been our CRM of choice at Wiscoat, and it's made our world exponentially better efficiency-wise. For our small seal coating company, it has helped build the solid foundation we can scale from. Jobber is now a sponsor of Blacktop Banter and helps bring this show to you. With this partnership, Jobber is offering an exclusive savings to BB listeners of 20% off for 6 months. To take advantage of this, find the Jobber link in the show description and get to improving your process today. In my opinion, Dynapac CC900G roller is the best roller on the market for driveway and small parking lot paving contractors. The seismic technology in these rollers is unbeatable for the smoothness and compaction they provide. Take my word for it, or visit Dynapac.com to find a dealer near you. When you talk about whether it's the hot boxes or the seal coat rigs or whatever, they're built on the stuff that you guys have learned through the years. Like every time and that's the reputation when you go around a conference or you talk to somebody who has one, they're like, dude, it's a tank. Like it's bulletproof. And most of the time they're talking about the hot boxes because that's where the reputation was built on. But like for us in the industry, there's things that are just no brainers, like brand names that you will say for certain things where you're like, if you're going to get one, just get that. That way you don't have to worry about it. And KM has been that in the hot box game for a long time. But that's not the only thing. Like when I come over and see you guys and we get to tour the facility and do a lot of things, we're looking at hot boxes. We're looking at the infrared machines. You guys have crack sealing machines. You have now the seal coat rigs, right, which have come out, and they all are based on the quality, not only of like how they're built, but your guys' material qualities when they come in. Like I know when we were doing the seal coat rigs, they were like, we're waiting on a certain temp or certain gauge tempered steel for these rigs. Like, we have to have them. So once they come in, we'll make it. So we know what's coming off the line as product is high quality. So, you know, talking about all the pieces of equipment and stuff, when I was over there, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't get there this year, but last year it was kind of crammed because there was a lot going on. There was a lot of rigs going in there and in and out of there. The assembly line was in one big squared loop where we're like, well, it's going to go here, 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 here. But big announcement this year, you guys expanded and got a facility. Tell us a little bit about the expansion and whatnot that's going on over there.
Yeah, yep. So we added another, I don't know, 16 or 17,000 square feet. And really that was to supplement building tanks. You know, from a manufacturing perspective, the infrareds and the crack maintenance, they're all low square footage items. You know, you could bulk store those or put them wherever you want to, really. And
Yeah.
so once we got into building tanks, a little bit bigger of a footprint, and in our ambition, and I think we achieved this, was to build X number of tanks to have them ready for that spring, spring summer rush.
Yep.
We know this industry, and especially this year, like you said, with the rain, like, you essentially have 150 days to make your money.
Oh yeah.
And that's just the fact of the matter. I mean, people down south maybe, they extend that season a little bit further, but our goal, in addition to the reliability and, ease of use of all the equipment, is to have it there, have it ready. So is if you call me on a Monday, I can ship it out to you on Tuesday, and it can be there Wednesday, and you can go do what you need to do. So
Yeah.
that was really the underlying ambition for expanding and bringing on another facility, is we wanted to be able to accommodate those guys out in the field, our end users.
Yeah, yeah, and I think when it makes so much sense when you talk about it being the tanks and the seal coat units and whatnot, because when we were there were, I think when I was there was 700-gallon tanks. Then they were stacked up like 4 or 5 high in there, and they were taking up a lot of real estate inside there. Not only that, like, it's hard to maneuver around those. And once they were built, I want to say between whatever we had for BB rigs, Everline, I know, had some stuff there, and it just made those rigs with all the tanks that were being held and everything really crammed there. So it's really neat. I didn't get over there. We had a lot going on this year. I wish I would have made it over to the open house, and I think Cliff disowned me, but I'm gonna try. I'll try to work my way back into the good graces. But I mean, for us, it's just this thing where you know, I keep going back to it, where we use the infrared this year. I know I got you some footage and whatnot of us being able to use it and whatnot. And there's just this thing where it's ease of use. And for our industry, most of the time, if you're into the asphalt maintenance game, you're a guy that's probably pretty simple, not so complicated. Therefore, when we have stuff that we know we can rely on and isn't complicated to operate, we're happy. We're happy dudes. Like, if we can hook on it and I know it's going to work that day and I'm covered, I'm good. Not to say that I don't ever run into problems, but we're still using the rigs. We've overcome anything that's ever happened or did whatever out in the field. And like, I think I posted to the Blacktop Banter Success group, Mike, that we put a lot of sealer through our rig this year, but where my wand connects to my rubber hose, obviously you bend that throughout the year. And I walked up on it one day and there was a bubble right in that hose, and I was like, oh, okay. All we did was take the pressure off, cut the end of the hose off, take the hose clamp on, put it back on, and do whatever. So, I mean, you run into some stuff like that, but most of the stuff, like whether it's the hot boxes that we've demoed, even the infrared, you guys made it pretty easy. Turn the valves on, turn the knobs. You're good.
Well, and I mean, part of that is a majority of us in the entire organization, we've been out there doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Me, Kurt, Mike, Cliff, obviously Brian's been doing it for 35 plus years. I mean, we've literally been out shoveling asphalt, applying seal coat. So it's like, it's one of those things where, like, all right, is this something that if I was out there in your guys' shoes, am I going to want to use it? Is it easy
Mm-hmm.
enough to use where, they don't even really have to read the manual. They can just kind of hop right into it and, okay, this goes here and this is how you turn the burner on, blah, blah, blah. It's just one of those things like we don't want to overcomplicate anything, and we take a step back and say, is this something that I would want to use out in the field?
Yeah. I mean, we've seen pieces of equipment come through that are really overcomplicated, and you don't see too many of those on social media anywhere or on
Yep.
anybody's rigs anywhere. Or anything anymore, at least. It's a great concept, but most of the time they're just too fragile for what we do. I mean, you have something sitting there and you throw a shovel and it knocks a cable loose or it busts something and you're done. Like that's it. Like, and that
Yep.
happens every day. You know what I
Yep.
mean? So, it's just one of those things I think where when you know the people that use it actually use it, uh, you kind of get a feel for it, right? Like for us, we had a new crew lead this year at Wiscote, and I don't know, man. 3 weeks he was spraying, confidently. Where I was like, okay,
Yeah.
cool, you're good. You run the rig. I'm actually gonna go. I'm going to Tennessee for a little bit. I'll be back in 4 or 5 days, and then I'll come back, go back and forth. But that's what you want. I mean,
Oh yeah,
um,
you're absolutely right.
it design if you can design your business to function around the equipment. Good gracious, you're about to buy yourself some time back. And I had plenty of it this
Yeah.
year to a complaint point at some points of like Marvin's never
Man,
around,
what
but
what do I do? What do I do now?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
No,
yeah,
and I mean, it's cool because like we take you, people think like, oh, I'm gonna make a suggestion, but they're never gonna listen to me. Like we do listen to them from
yeah,
out in the field and stuff like that. We're never we're not so arrogant that we're like, oh no, that guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Like if anybody has a suggestion out in the field, send it our way. And people do. And if it's something that we can easily integrate and make sense and works with the rest of the unit and it's a good idea, then yeah, hell yeah, we're gonna put it, we're gonna implement it into the production schedule and make the change and, revise the drawings and do all of that stuff, which I think is partially unique to most manufacturers because some of them they're like, nope, my engineers they designed it like this and this is how it's gonna be and I don't
yep,
want your input and either you're gonna buy it or you're not. I don't care what you have to say.
yeah.
We're obviously the furthest thing from that.
Well, I know I sent you a picture. I don't know if it was this year. It might have been this year or last year, maybe. But I sent you a picture of something on the rig that broke, and I was like, "Dude, look at this thing! Like this broke." And you're like, "Oh yeah, we already got that covered. I'm gonna send you a repair kit." And like the next day, we had a repair kit still going on the repair kit of like, yeah, this will work and it'll work way better, and it has ever since. So I think it was just that thing where it's like, although Marvin is supposed to be at the forefront and like the first one, somebody else must have already been like, "Hey, this is an issue here," and you guys were already prepared for it. And now you notice the new rigs come out, they're already outfitted with that, right? So I think it's just one of those things where it's an appreciative thing on our end that we know if I send you an email or in my fortunate place I can send you a text. Um, there's a response there and there's a response quick enough that we get our stuff taken care of because like you said we have 120 150 days depending on what the weather wants to do. If there's that urgency always in my brain, Mike, of like every minute counts, every hour counts, we got to get this done, we got to keep moving. And
Yep.
when I call or text you, you're like, dude, as soon as I can get it there, we're going to get it there, we're going to get taken care of. Like if you run into anything else, give me a call, let me know. Just everybody being on the same page of time is money, gives you kind of a sense of assurance of like, okay, they get it, they understand, we're going to get this thing taken care of. Not saying that all the fixes need to be sent to KM. Like I told you, my hose had a bubble in it. I knew how to fix it, cut the end of the hose off and put a new hose clamp on there and we're good to go. But I think it's just an overall unique thing that we get at KM. And it's part of the reason why we partnered with you all on the seal coat rigs and whatnot, because it's just that general consensus.
I know it's one of those from a manufacturing perspective, it's one of those double-edged swords because like, some manufacturers, dude, they rake it in on like parts and service and stuff like that. We don't.
Right.
We're more like low price consumable parts rather than like huge major fixes and stuff like that. So, it's good. It's good for all parties, but specifically, when somebody buys something, I have the confidence like this is gonna last probably way longer than it should.
Oh, for
I mean, we
sure.
have guys who bought infrareds 20 years ago, like in Metro Detroit specifically, who they just come up once a year to get some, like, change the blanket or just some general maintenance on it. And they go off on their way and they're like, oh, well, I'm not going to buy a new one because this one's still working. I'm like, damn it. All right. Well, maybe next year, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Eli spent a lot of time with me out on parking lots this summer, and we were looking at the KM rig, him and I, fairly often. And he sprayed this year, so he was excited to be able to use the rig. 13 years old, he's out spraying, so he was excited. But we would look at it some days, and he'd be like, "Well, what parts are going to go?" I said, "Well, maybe this diaphragm is going to go at some point in this pump." I was like, "And then there's a bearing on each end. Like that's probably going to go at some point." And he's like, "And then what?" And I'm like looking at it. I'm like, I don't know. A hose dry rots. I don't. The motor on the compressor maybe sometime. I'm like, dude, this rig's probably you're probably going to use this rig. Like it's
Yep.
probably going to be yours, and then more than likely you're going to have a son and still have this rig if we're still doing this. And
Yep.
that was kind of just a mind blowing thing of like, if I was able to take this rig and divide it by, let's just say 10 years, 15 years, 20 years by the overall price, I'm paying pretty small amount per year for it to create a living for our families, our employees' families and whatnot over those years with very minimal necessary parts or replacement or major surgery. And that's something that I think not a lot of people take into effect when they're trying to figure out the value of their machines. Like most of them are like, how can I make my money back on this as fast as I can, right? To where we're
Yep.
ahead of it. Well, what they're missing out on is, well, what about over the next 10 years? About over the next 20 years? Like if your business works, dude, this thing's going to pay for itself and then some and not cost you a lot of money.
Yep. And I'm so glad you brought that up because we fought this in the hot box market for a really long time. We are price wise, we are not the low man on the totem pole. And that's it's just a fact of the matter.
Yeah.
We feel that we manufacture a very good, reliable, dependable product, and I mean we price it accordingly. And
Hmm.
so we fought that battle for a long time in the hot box market of like, okay, yes, we're, call it $5,000 higher on the purchase price, but like how long is it going to take you to make that up? On our parts versus like a competitor's parts. Like if you were to buy a
Yeah.
competitor's machine paying, call it 2,500 bucks a year in parts, and we're, you know 250, 400 bucks, somewhere in that range, like it's really not going to take you that long to make up that price difference. And
Hmm.
we're we're finding that a little bit in the seal coat tanks as well. It's one of those things. It's the same concept. Like we really think that we have a good reliable tank, not a lot that's can or will go wrong with it. And yeah, I mean, I'll be straight shooter. We're a little bit higher up front, but I think if people had that same mindset of like, okay, it's more now, but what's it going to cost me? What's the 5 year,
Yeah.
parts and maintenance look like?
Yeah. Oh,
So
is it going to be
it's
around in 5 years? Is it going to be around in
yeah,
10 years? Right.
yep, exactly. So it's, I mean, it's an uphill battle. They're just trying to not sell it, but just kind of make people have that realization. Like it's not all about now, it's about 3, 5, 10 years from now. Like what's it truly going to cost you?
Yeah, I think what you get is you're going to get a mixed bag of contractors. You get guys that are just starting who look at it like, man, it's pretty simple. Like they're all pretty simple, and this one's a little bit higher. And then you get guys that have done it now for 5 years, 10 years, and then they're looking for a specific thing or multiple specific things when it comes to buying a seal coat unit, and they find it in the KM rigs, right? Where they're like, okay, let's say I'm 30 years old now. I want a rig until I'm 45, 50 years old. I'm going to find one, and I'm going to find one with a team that, if they've dealt with similar, how do I want to put this, customer service departments at other places, they're like, well, I've had a great experience with this team. Whether it's me or whoever, they know that you have clients that they probably know that they can talk to where if you're going to make a substantial purchase, make it an educated one, and make sure you can talk to your peers and people who don't have any skin in the game this way or that way. Like, just because Marvin partners with KM International or has a KM rig, Marvin probably knows 100 other people that have no bearing at all, and I can tell you who they are, and you can ask them on your own outside of there, right? And we'll let you know. So I think, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I'm glad you brought up the service aspect of it too, because I that's one thing we do really pride ourselves on is off, like, we're always there to answer the phone, whether it's, you know, during normal business hours or after hours, on the weekends, whatever. I mean, we've sent people out on Sunday nights to help, you know, a seal coater, you know, had a clog or something, like, I can't even remember the exact scenario, but he was out there on Sunday night helping them out, and it's just one of those things.
I've called you on Sunday night, and you're like, yeah, I'm having dinner with my wife and the kid, and I was like, yeah, I know, I wish I was, but I got a problem. Right? So I think there's just that thing of like, it's lonely, dude. It's lonely when you're out there and you own the company and the shit is hitting the fan. When you can call somebody and they answer the damn phone at the hour that you're out, when you know, like, they shouldn't, there's just this comforting thing of like, okay, they're in it with me. They want me to succeed too. We're going to figure this out. And we've never not done that.
Yeah, because it's, I mean, we always say, like, one sale is not going to make or break us. We want you to come back for more. Like, you know, we want you to, you know, get into seal coat and then progress to crack filling. Like, we're essentially trying to take you on this journey of, like, you're starting at seal coating, you're going to crack filling, then you're getting into pavement maintenance, and then, you know, everybody eventually wants to get into paving, which I've never understood, but that's another discussion. But we're trying to offer the service as well as the products that take you on that progressive journey to get, you know, to build a successful company.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what you see in that chain, right? Like, there's guys who I know I've talked to over at where you guys are in Michigan, where they started with a hot box, right? And then all of a sudden they bought the infrared, and then they bought the seal coat rig, right? Like, they've worked their way into an asphalt maintenance company after just starting doing patching, you know? So to have that chain, to be able to do that and see the ladder up there makes a big difference. Can you talk a little bit about what the future looks like? I know you guys got the new facility, seal coat rigs are coming out, but what's the goals, or what's the future look like in 2025 for y'all?
Well, it's like I said, after the election, it is definitely trending up. I mean, we're poised for some really good growth. I think we've finally got the right people in the right places, and have partnered with you and other companies to really position us to be, I guess, to cement ourselves as a leader in specifically the pavement maintenance industry. And you're right, we're balls to the wall on tanks right now. We're 550s, 700-gallon tanks. We're slowly starting to add additional options. Like, we wanted to keep it simple to start, but we're looking into spray bars and a couple of other things that are retractable hose reels, stuff like that are fairly common, you know, in the industry, but it wasn't something we wanted to take on right away. So as far as the tanks go, those are really going to be our primary focus.
Cool.
Coming this year, and not to say everything else is going to go by the wayside, but we've in a sense perfected the other products over the last, 25 plus years. So getting back into the tanks a few years ago really opened our eyes to the opportunities out there, and really helped us get back in touch with like those, you know, salt of the earth type contractors who like that's what they want to do. Like they are seal coaters. They're either newer to the industry, or some of them have been doing it, it's a family generational business that they've passed down. So that was not to say we were missing the boat with that certain target market, but I think the seal coat units put us back in touch, or in better touch with those type of companies and people, which is a very welcoming sign. And I think it opens up a whole new market within the pavement maintenance industry for us, for sure.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. The part of that is the hot boxes, like you mentioned before, a lot of times go to government entities, right? Municipalities and whatnot, where they're not really buying seal coat rigs, but families are, right?
Yeah.
And I think like now, like that was our goal. I know we talked about early goals when we kind of did partnership and whatnot, and that was some of our goals, was like, let's get into like the contractor side and really get to where we're at least having conversations with them. And then if we can get into conversations with them where a hot box makes sense for them, great, because there are contractors where that does make sense for them. They might not have known it or understood it, but we were able to have those conversations and bring examples to them where they can find it. And then on vice versa, there are municipalities who do seal coat and beautify their cities or their townships or whatever they're doing. And it's just nice to kind of see one hand wash the other,
Yep.
and these things
And
complement each other.
it was just really funny to me. Like we've always, so we work with a lot of like Department of Defense agencies, and they're always looking at the hot boxes, the recyclers, for airport runway maintenance and stuff like that. And there was a RFQ that came out for an Air Force out west who wanted a asphalt sealer, and I was like, this is just so odd to me. But they ended up buying one of our units, and we've stayed in pretty good touch with them, and they're just they use it, once or twice a summer, really just to beautify. Like it's a huge base, so really just like the driveways and stuff like that. But it was funny. I mean, just going from our normal clientele who would buy a seal coat trailer to a United States Air Force is just it was just an odd transition.
Yeah, send me out there. I want to make content with them.
Yeah,
Yeah, I want to see it. Hopefully they paint it like desert sand or an army green
we
or
did.
something like that.
We
Oh, you did?
did.
It was desert sand? Oh, sick.
It was
Sick.
desert sand. They bought a T2 recycler at the same time
Sick.
too, but we painted desert sand. It was
Sick.
they were cool. They were sharp looking.
Damn, dude. All right. I'd love to be out there and check that out. Well, as we get wrapped up here, I really want to ask you a question. This is, like you said, your 11th year. I'm sure when you were in school for marketing, you didn't quite know where you were going to end up or where you're going to land or what you're going to do. But you spoke quite a bit during this podcast about working with contractors, individuals, and whatnot. Whether it's from life or from being in the industry now for over a decade, what piece of advice could you give us as far as whether you're new to the industry, whether you've been around for a while, or whether you're just in the industry? One thing I think, and this is to attribute to you, one thing you're really good at is spying opportunity before it actually shows itself to everybody else, and then making sure that relationships are developed really well. During those two things, I would imagine you have to have some great piece of advice to pull out of there.
Well, I'll give you two.
Well, perfect.
And one's a little bit cliche, but it plays into what you're saying. Don't be afraid to fail. Like especially in the marketing field, like your 50% of your budget is wasted on just things
Well,
that
that
don't
explains
work
why you
out.
partnered with me. Like, we can't be afraid to fail. We got
I
excess
don't know. You
money.
might be in the other 50%.
Oh,
I don't know.
perfect.
It's not the
Okay.
end of the year yet. We got to see.
That's true.
But it's one of the, like, if if you have an idea and you don't test it or act on it, then it's just an idea. Like you never know if it's gonna work, if it's not gonna work, if it's stupid, if it's, $1 million idea. But if you don't test it out and try it, then you'll never know.
No.
Second piece of advice is don't don't be afraid to take constructive criticism or network with your peers. I
Mm,
think with like the shows specifically like Payvex and what used to be NPE, like those type of opportunities, getting to interact with your peers and people in very similar situations
hmm
is definitely a positive. And like every time I go to Payvex or a
World of
show, I
Asphalt or
look, yeah,
wherever.
World of Asphalt, I learn something new. Like
Yeah.
I don't know everything. None of us do.
Dude, I
It's
learn
it's
something every time.
Yep. So it's one of those things. Don't, a lot of people are like, oh, well, I don't want to, talk
Pick
to
the
my
experience.
competitor and blah blah blah. And I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, we talk to our competitors all the time. It's not. There's enough work to go around. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? It's just one of those things that you need to learn from other people sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. And crazily, the byproduct of that is sometimes you make friends.
Yeah,
And like
exactly.
it never hurts to be able to have somebody to call on Sunday afternoon when you don't know what's going on, whether it's
Yep.
with life or your rig or whatever. So,
Yeah.
man, I appreciate you joining us today. I'm sure we mentioned a couple of shows, Pavex, of course. We'll see you all there, I'm guessing, and then World of Asphalt. More than likely, we'll see you again. I would hope. It's the off season, so the shows are popping up like crazy. Online, where can we find you guys on? What's the website?
www.kminternational.com.
And then Instagram, we can find KM International as well. They're pretty active on there, and they're definitely on a lot of our posts at Blacktop Banter as well. Uh, dude, I think for us, I can't state enough about the attitude that you have towards our community and Blacktop Banner and what it represented and represents for the industry, and just having a partner that is like, yeah, we believe in you. Let's go for it. It creates an attitude on our end of when you guys come up with something and we're like, okay, cool. Yeah, we'll take one. Let's figure it out. And we end up figuring it out, and it works out well for everybody on the back end. I just want to say how much I appreciate that, man, especially over the year here, the partnership.
Dude, absolutely. And I told you this before. I admire the fact that you essentially took the bull by the horns. This community has been something that I think has been severely lacking in this specific industry for a long time, and for you to kind of spearhead it and take it upon yourself to create that community. I think it was a no-brainer to partner together, because we have the same feelings, we have the same thought process. It's just you you had the ambition to do it and we did not, so we're riding on your coattails, man.
Perfect. Well, that's cool because we're sitting on your guys' support, so it works out well for everybody. Well, as always, you can go to blacktopbanner.com and check out what we have going on there. If you just type in at Blacktop Banner on any social media, you'll find us. More than likely, you're going to find some content that we partnered with KM International to create and perform. As always, for myself here at Blacktop Banter, for Michael Blake at KM International, this is Blacktop Banner, and as always, we speak asphalt. Peace. Hey everybody, Marvin here from Blacktop Banter, and if you enjoy the podcast and what we've been bringing to the industry, you can support us through a one-time or recurring donation at blacktopbanter.com. There we have a support tab. You click that and choose your path from there. If you listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please do us a favor and leave a review there for us as well. As always, we speak asphalt, and thanks for your support.